Hey folks. Yay. There goes my cuckoo clock. It went by too fast. I was going to show it to you. Thanks for joining me, folks. We're just going to have a quick little chitty chat. Hello, my dears. Howdy from the Upper Peninsula. Hey, from the LP.
Hi guys, I'm doing great. Thank you for loving Nothing Much Happens. Wow, hi from Greece. Hello. Hey, Mikey.
Hi.
It's so great to finally meet you in face to face.
I know, I know. It's great to connect. I've been looking forward to this and chatting with you.
Me too. How are you today?
Oh, good, good. I mean, I'm sure you've probably heard with all the consumer businesses and the craziness of tariffs. That's everyone's world right now.
Yeah.
So besides that, everything else is going well though, and I'm glad we
Yeah, I
have our
feel like that's
pillows.
like the common feeling lately is like there's my personal life and then there's the world and it's a lot to manage. That's why I've actually been holding this
Yeah,
for the last
yeah,
15 minutes and it does really feel
yeah.
so good.
And it seems like the world stuff just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and pushing out everything else. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, every conversation is what the hell's happening in the world?
Yeah, I know. I know. That's why I think it is important to have conversations that aren't about that, connect about things that are still good. It's something I used to say at the beginning of the pandemic when I was still teaching yoga. I would say in every class, good things are happening today and more will happen tomorrow. Because I feel like sometimes we just need to be affirmed that there are still good things happening in the world and more will continue to happen.
Yeah, I like that. That's
Yeah.
a good notion to take with you.
Yeah. Well, it's been a really exciting and fun collaboration with Quiet Mind to make this lovely. Nothing much happens. Weighted pillow. Oh, you've got yours too.
Yep.
I really want to hear about. I think that we have probably similar stories about feeling like there was a need that we could fill, someone that we could help. And I'd love to hear about how Quiet Mind happened.
Yeah. My story is one where diagnosed ADHD, math dyslexia, sensory processing at a young age. I was the kid bouncing around all the time. My mom would say ants in his pants, couldn't really sit still. And this, led to focus issues, classroom stuff was trouble. And so years later, just, going on these medications and seeing what they did to my mental health, where I would have side effects, I'd be prescribed more medications to treat the side effects of the medications. That just didn't work. And
Mm-hmm.
I finally said I need to find natural solutions and I need to find things that I can take, for myself, take it in my own control, not have a doctor do it for me. And that's what led me to a weighted blanket, which I liked. I liked the calming properties of it. And then I just found it a little hot, cumbersome, couldn't move it around. And so I said, let me buy a weighted pillow. And when I found out they didn't exist, something in me just said I should do this, especially because of the struggle I had with my mental health, the overprescription. I just thought this would be a way to give back to my community and give a product, just give people more resources, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm all for more resources, more options, more solutions, which is exactly, something you're doing where you're giving people more options.
Yeah, for sure. My story's similar. I feel like even though sleep wasn't something that I struggled with, I think it's because I developed this habit of storytelling in my head from the time I was 3 or 4 years old. It's like one of my oldest memories. I still connected with people every day who would tell me, I struggle to wind down. I can't get my mind to focus enough for me to fall asleep. And that is really what's happening neurologically in that moment when we struggle to settle. And it can happen with anxiety too, where we get stuck in default mode and our mind just endlessly races and roves. And we got to have sort of a tract that we can settle our mind into. It's kind of like setting a needle in the groove of the record. That once you do that, sleep becomes accessible. And I think because I am a teacher, it was kind of the same thing as you in that moment when you realized it didn't exist. I kept thinking, I know how to do this. And as a teacher, it drove me nuts. Like I should be able to get this from me to you. And I had that thought, like what that it was a podcast. And as soon as I thought that, I was like, oh, well, it's settled. I'm doing this. Let me go ahead and order the microphone right now because um, I think if you're somebody who is a problem solver, when you recognize the piece of the puzzle that was missing and how to put it in there, you can't not do it. You're going to do it.
And then there's this passion that comes through, which kind of just takes you day by day, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
a year later, you're going, okay, I guess I'm really doing this now, which I'm sure you experienced. And so I do have a question on the voice. How long
Sure.
did it take you to get that voice and finalize and say this is going to be the sort of the tone that we're going to go with?
Not long at all. I think because I have spent like the 10,000 hours in the yoga room, I've spent a long time. And as a previous theater kid, you learn a lot about how your presence can shift other people's experience. So I had tons of hours on the ground listening to my own voice and watching other people's face and body react and trying to figure out what's the combination here that causes other people to soften and not sort of deflect. And once I found that, it just felt really natural to me. And, the first season of Nothing Much Happens does sound different. And I think that was because I was recording in Bob's studio and a little part of me felt like I needed to get done with it. And I wasn't sure how people were going to respond to it. I didn't understand how long it should take. And by the time we got to the second season and it was going to just be in my own studio, and I thought, oh, I can slow down even more, then it felt really natural to me. So, sometimes people will say, why do you sound different over time? And I always say, well, I'm not a computer, I'm a person.
Yeah.
And I have my own evolution, even as a creative artist who likes to use her voice. But it was all really intuitively put into place based on years of spending time with folks.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. That makes me think when it comes to your pillows, is there like a similar journey? Like, how did you find the right weight, the right size, all those kind of components?
Yeah, when I first kind of came up with the idea, I said, let me just see if this works. I ordered some stuff from
Hmm.
Amazon and I just made, the most makeshift. I think it was ankle weights, it was a hanger with some cotton, put in a pillow. And instantly I go, oh, this does
Hmm.
work. But then when it broke and I could feel the weight, it almost triggered this reaction inside of me that said, wait, why don't I like this now? And then I
Hmm.
started researching and kind of figured out what is weight doing? What is this, effect that you're getting with weighted blankets, with weighted pillows, where when you have pressure or weight on your body, it starts this reaction from deep pressure stimulation. So you're going to increase all these good, happy hormones. You're going to decrease your stress hormone, and your nervous system is going to switch from fight or flight to rest and digest. And so when I was doing it on my own, and I could feel that way, and I go, "Oh, that's my fight or flight saying, no, no, we don't like this. We're not safe." So then I have to figure out a way to hide the weight. And so with the pillow,
Hmm.
basically it was my ADHD just like taking over and just
Hmm.
hyper focusing on this, going, I have to make the ultimate sensory relieving tool. I have to make something that for the ADHD people, the
Hmm.
neurodivergent, someone with mental health, they feel it and they go, oh no, this is just a regular pillow. And that was kind of the end result I needed.
Hmm.
Versus with some weighted blankets where you might get them, you can feel that the glass beads, you can feel the pressure. Sometimes they break, and the sand or glass beads also and so on. And so for me, it was just let's make something that really works using my own experience, saying I don't like the weight, I don't want to feel it, let's hide it. And then just every kind of step of the process was, what would the ultimate version of this be? Okay, so then the fabric, we need the sensory relieving fabric that's ultra plush, ultra soft, but we don't want it to shed, because I knew from, a previous career, if you have shedding, then all of a sudden you're going to get customer complaints and people won't like it. So it was okay, let's just design this, calm someone down in the
Hmm.
way that I know how. And so everything really was designed for that experience to be just perfect for sensory relief.
I so appreciate that that level of thoughtfulness goes into the design. I don't have ADHD, but I am a highly sensitive person. And so stuff like, tags in my shoes, the wrong kind of material, I feel like I can get triggered really easily into that feeling of sensory overload. Um, and so knowing that it's like designed with sensory issues in mind, that's really, really appreciated, I think, because a lot of times you'll find these products and then you'll use them one time and you think, did anybody ever use this? Because this would have come up that isn't how it should be.
Hmm. And that was something, especially when you're building a brand new product, where you're looking at both sides of the manufacturing process and going, if we're going that detailed on something, then the costs are going to go up. And are
Hmm.
people going to even want that? Are they going to understand that? Or do we just want to make something that, maybe it's on the cheaper end and we don't give it as much thought? And for the way my brain works, it was just, let me just make something that I want
Yeah,
to use
yeah.
and we'll see where we end up with it. And then it created a product that is well made, is thoughtfully designed, and works and lasts, longer than
Hmm.
the kind of the other options you might find. And that was the other, component to it where you're taking sometimes medication daily. You're using these things every single day. And so with the weighted pillow, it was okay, well then let's make this work every single day. So let's make it stand up to that daily use, that wear and
Hmm.
tear, so you can use it every day. And it becomes a part of your routine without fading over time, without breaking down or anything like that.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what we just landed on. Just let's make something that I like, and then hopefully others will as well.
Yeah. I find I use mine. I do always keep it in the booth with me because it's very grounding when I'm trying to find that groove that I was talking about of finding like the right space. But even just if I'm in my chair and, I'm gonna spend 20 minutes scrolling or playing a game or something, there's this natural prop up feeling that I'm like, this is already part of my habits. Now, if I could just like swap in something that also has beneficial effects for my nervous system, whoops, I just developed a habit that is even more beneficial for me. So that's one of the things I like about this. I also have a weighted blanket, but you're right. It's in the closet because it's too cumbersome for me to lug around. And it squished my
Oh,
chihuahuas.
oh
they
no.
were they were only like 9 pounds, and they were like,
Oh God. Yeah, I
so
mean, we get the
I
joke.
think a pillow works better.
Yeah, we have a lot of customers, right? And they'll say my dog or my cat, they now, they're replaced, and they get so upset and they just
Mm,
stare at me because I mean, it's a similar effect where, yeah, you're putting,
hmm.
that lap cat, that lap animal. But the weighted blankets, they work well to an effect, but then it's that when you want to move around, you go,
Yeah,
why is this so much harder than it should be? You wouldn't think
yeah,
it is, and then you're kind of bundling it all up, and then it wasn't an enjoyable process.
yeah. And as a woman who is, waist deep in perimenopause, the combination of a weighted blanket and night sweats was a bad one because you'd be waking up in the middle of the night like trying to fight your way out of the blanket. So it really just it didn't work long term. So I now
Yeah,
have I have this one in here that I use in the booth, and then I have a different one that I keep in my bedroom, just so that I always have one nearby whenever I need it.
that's actually what the kind of how the idea came to me, where I was fighting. It was night after night, and I would either wake up too hot or wake up too cold. And so if it was too hot with the blanket on top of you, you wake up, you're like, oh my gosh, get off of me. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But by just doing that, you kind of wake yourself up. And then
Yep.
the same thing, if you're too cold and you wake up, you're like, where is this thing? You're trying to pull it on you. And it just kind of it wakes you up, it startles you. It's not, something that you should be going through in the middle of the night. And that's when the idea just kind of comes in with like weighted pillow. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. Thinking that I could just, buy one on the spot. And then turns out that idea just didn't exist. It was like, okay, let's go
Yeah.
down that.
It's kind of the same when I started Nothing Much Happens. There weren't bedtime stories for grown-ups. It didn't exist. There was like one other sleep podcast, and it was kind of, reviewing like TV shows and stuff like that in a calm way, which I think for some people works great, but it wasn't the thing I was looking for. And in kind of the same way that I was building something for myself, because even though I slept well, I often had a hard time coming down from the day and just finding like a bridge into more peaceful thought. And I wonder if this is something that you experience when you're developing something that doesn't really exist before. There's an element of education for your users that you do kind of need to teach them how it works, where to use it, all that stuff. Is that something you've run into?
Completely. I mean, weighted blanket, if you don't know what a weighted blanket is, at least you know what a blanket is. You know the function of a blanket, you
Yes.
know where to put a blanket. If you hear weighted pillow, most people go, why would I sleep on that? And if you hear pillow, you think, okay, that must be for my head. Maybe,
Yeah.
I'll lean on it. And so for us, when I was looking at should it be called a weighted pillow? Should it be called a hug pillow? Should it be called something that makes a little bit more sense? It was let's just try and run with the actual, the main name of the weighted pillow, and then just slowly educate people on what it is, kind of keep pounding that same messaging day
Hmm.
in and day out. And eventually we'll build the new category where I have to imagine that, back in the day, weighted blanket, it was unfamiliar to people, even though they had the luxury of blanket. People still had to understand what's a weighted blanket. And so if we were just going to go day in and day out building that main category of weighted pillow, then eventually it would kind of catch on. And it's funny when you said the bedtime stories for adults, we kind of always say for us, it's like, the adult stuffed animal,
Hmm.
where this is the cooler stuffed animal if you didn't want to, have a little rabbit running around or
Hmm.
something. And so there's kind of the exact same space.
Yeah. In the end, the stuff that soothed us and worked on us when we were kids, it often still works on us when we're adults. We just don't sort of have access to it in the
Hmm.
same way. So we got to build those products in where people can get at them.
Hmm. And with the world shifting to people kind of taking more and more of their self-soothing into their own hands, people are
Hmm.
looking for more options. They're just
Hmm.
looking for what is something I can do to calm me down, to kind of
Hmm.
tame the stimulation that everybody has now because of phones, just the internet,
Hmm.
social media, whatever it is. There's so much stimulation. So finding outlets, whether it's a weighted pillow, it's a bedtime story, to just tell the mind to say, slow down for a little bit, kind of reset, and then you can get yourself back together. It's so helpful that these options do exist where, 5, 10 years ago, it was, I don't know what to do. Should we do medication? And it was, there weren't as many options. And I think just having people having options is really what it's all about.
Yeah. And stuff that you can do easily and quick. I was a yoga teacher for 20 years, and I still think there's so much value in going to the studio and taking a class. But our lives have changed a lot since the pandemic. And for a lot of folks, they need something that was going to last for 5 minutes, 10 minutes that they can do right now from where I am,
Hmm.
rather than having to travel somewhere or lean on somebody else. Let me just be able to take it, like you said, into my own hands, literally, and, shift my nervous system.
Hmm. Yeah, and learning about nervous system where, because I come from a tech marketing background
Okay.
where that's not even something you talk about or think of. And so just understanding that so much of your mental health kind
Hmm.
of begins with your nervous system,
Yeah.
and how can you sort of alter that, control it, calm it down. It's just been eye-opening, and it makes it more enjoyable because so many people are going through these, struggles now where they can't calm themselves down or they can't find that calm in their life. And so yeah, it's been really fun.
Yeah. I wonder, that's been my bread and butter for like 25 years professionally, is to talk about and understand the nervous system. So it was already something that was like really built into my thinking and subconsciously became part of the world of nothing much before I was even realizing that I was making decisions in that direction. Where did you go to sort of train yourself on these kind of things, like the effect of deep pressure?
Early on, it was a lot of research, and then started expanding by basically talking to, I don't know if I guess they would be influencer, but it would be, someone who specializes in nervous system regulation and then partnering with them and saying, hey, what's going on here? Can you explain it in a more simple way than maybe I'm familiar with it? And it was kind of adding almost, I would call them allies and saying, you're an expert
Yeah.
in this. I'm not an expert in this yet. Can you help me understand it more? Bringing more people on, explaining why this thing, actually works, backing it up. And then it was just slowly building that community who was already doing it, and then bringing it onto the weighted pillow to give it that backing that we didn't really have at the time.
Right on. How long has Quiet Mind been around?
So the idea came to me in April of 2021, and then it took me about 2 years to launch it. So we launched May 17th of 2023. So it's almost our 2 year birthday in
Nice.
about a month or so. And it's been great because I mean, those first couple months, people are like, "What's a weighted pillow? Why would I sleep on a weighted pillow?" And then
Yeah.
slowly you figure out what to do, and then it gets better and better. You get more people who buy in, and they like it, and they go, "Oh, this makes a lot of sense."
Right on.
Yeah. What
Yeah,
about you?
we're just about to have, this is the month actually of our 7 year
Oh,
anniversary.
fun.
Yeah, which is actually leads us into the next thing I want to tell listeners is that we are launching tomorrow a giveaway of um, the Quiet Mind, Nothing Much Happens collaboration pillow. There are 3 prize tiers, and I need to tell you how to enter and what's included, but I don't remember. Please hold. Oh, we're going to announce it tomorrow. I'm letting you know that it's happening, but tomorrow on our Instagram feeds, on all of our social media feeds, we will post the graphics that tell you sort of what to do, how to enter. And like I said, there's 3 tiers. So we're giving away, I know, one of these guys, and then we've got 2, I think, of the minis to give away, which are also really nice.
Yeah, and then we're doing 15% off as well for the weighted pillows. The quiet mind times nothing much happens weighted pillows, and that code is NMH15
Yeah.
for 15%
For
off.
15% off. And Kaylee is kindly reminding me that folks can enter by commenting on a post and tagging a friend. So if you have a friend who you think could benefit from having a little hug companion for the day, please tag them, let them know about it. I think that's one of the ways that, we kind of sometimes get pulled into these discussions about like the hard parts about technology and the difficult things it brings into our lives. But to me, one of the best parts of social media is the things that my friends have shared with me, the things I've learned about how to care for myself better. And so if you know somebody out there who might need a bedtime story, who might need a buddy to hug while they're listening so they get a really cozy good night's sleep, then please comment, tag on the post starting tomorrow. And I'm just going to remind everybody that code again is NMH15 to get 15% off your very own Cozy Mind Nothing Much Happens pillow.
Yeah, it really is a match made in heaven with,
I think so too.
adult bedtime
Mm-hmm.
stories and then holding onto a weighted pillow that just drifts you off to sleep and calms that racing mind.
For sure. I have, like I said, I have one in my pillow in my bed and one in my office. It gets used every single day. It's a really, really useful tool. I have bought so many of these sort of things over the years, and a lot of them I don't use. Or I might use once and think, yeah, it's a good idea, but it didn't push the button for me. But this I use day in and day out.
Well, great. Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
That's awesome. Um, well, it was really lovely to finally get a chance just to talk with you, Mikey, and hear
Yeah, it
about all the ways that
was.
our work is similar. I appreciate so much fellow entrepreneurs in this space who are working to help make the world a softer, calmer place.
Yeah, you just have to go for it and then hope for the best, basically.
You do. You kind of just have to make stuff happen because
Hmm.
nobody's going to make it for us. We just kind of got to step out there and create.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, I appreciate you doing this. I've loved the stories. I've loved the soothing voice. And so it's been really fun for us as a company to, partner with you guys and come out with this was our first ever collaboration, first ever limited edition color. So it's been really, really fun to, have you guys be the first partner we've worked with.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mikey. It's been a blast for us too. It is based on the Nothing Much Happens blue. So it is a signature color for us. I think it's really kind of perfect. I read once that sleeping pills have to be blue or they don't work. There's like
Oh,
a no,
interesting.
it's a nocebo effect, which is sort of the opposite of the placebo. If they make sleeping pills red, when you look at them and then you take them, your brain just sort of interrupts it and goes, that's not the sleepy pill. So that's why almost all sleeping pills are blue.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. That's a
Yeah,
fun fact.
I know. And I guess that this is true everywhere except for in Italy, which I have a little insight into because I used to live in Italy and I do speak Italian. Because our national football or soccer team is called Abruzzo, or I'm sorry, Azzurro, which means blue. And so for a lot of Italians, when they look at the blue pill, got them really excited to go watch soccer, so it didn't work there.
Oh, that's funny. That's a good little
Yeah.
story.
Thanks. Well, it's been great to connect with you, Mikey. Thank you so much for connecting with the whole village of Nothing Much Happens.
Yes, thank you as well.
Okay, sweet dreams.
Bye, guys.